Computer. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Craig Booth. I am the founder and principal of Channel Force Incorporated. Today, I have Will Taylor with me as a guest on the Channel Minute podcast. Will, if you want to do a quick introduction?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Craig. I am Will Taylor. I am the founder of bdpaths.com, and I've been exploring how to go to market in a modern fashion for the last 5 years, if not more, both doing the work and studying how to do the work. And I've come to some conclusions and had some interesting experiences. And the future is through the channel. And so I'm excited to dive into our topic today.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, I need to say right up front, you are absolutely one of my favorite people to follow on LinkedIn. And for those of you that know me, I don't know if you know Will, but we both come from the same angle when it comes to how to go to market. And it really is about structured performance, and it's about RevOps driven performance. And Will is a thought leader in RevOps. It's why I gravitate towards Will and felt like I needed to get him onto a podcast just to have a quick conversation and talk about all things RevOps and all things partner related. So,
You're
um,
so kind, Craig. I think that the RevOps side of things, it's something that more businesses are starting to focus on. And honestly, selfishly, I want to make sure that I am helping businesses truly execute and track and measure and be scientific how they go about things. Because previously, the last 5 years or 10 years, there was a lot of money in the market and they didn't necessarily need to be as efficient. And now they do. And so it's a little bit of how can I make sure that I'm really helping companies in the ways that they feel pain and also so that I can continue to level up. So I'm glad that it's resonating and that it's valuable as well from a content perspective.
yeah, 100%. And you just said something that really resonates with me as well. Another thing that you and I have in common is we really are trying to create value for our partnerships downstream. And I won't put words in your mouth. I'll speak more for me, but I'll see if this resonates with you. But I think the old ways of kind of the ad hoc channel model that we partner and pray, we go to market with, um, more product enablement, and we sort of hope for something to happen. And, the only time that something ever happens is when the deal registration shows up. But everything in between the enablement and the deal registration is a big black box. And, I think that style of, go to market from the past is a real challenge moving forward. And I think it's one of the problems that almost every partner leader is struggling with, which is how do I articulate the value of my strategy to my leadership when there's a big black hole that sits between my enablement strategy and my visibility and attribution of what that partner actually did. So I think RevOps can help solve some of that. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Are you seeing that same thing? And does that resonate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the analogy that I've been using for a lot of teams is the core revenue team in a business is on a train and they're headed in one direction, and partner teams are generally building their own rods, hitting them into the ground, and trying to course correct either through enablement or through simply just trying to build this new part of the business. But they have fewer resources. There's fewer people to, put the railroad rods into the ground. And instead, the theory that I propose to them to think about is, well, what if you could just be fuel for that revenue train? Instead of being ad hoc and out of the system, why not be in the system and really amplify everything that's going on in the business? Because that's how you will maintain buy-in in the economic climate that we're in, where when it was good, people could just spend a bunch of money and we go, well, the partner program's performing great. Let's just keep investing there. But now when companies are saying, well, how do we be more efficient and how do we cut costs? They're going to look to partnerships, which is unfortunately what has been happening where people lose their jobs. But the reason is because they can't confidently say, well, we're efficient in this area. It's performing, but we don't know how. So we don't know how to increase that performance and really make sure that during these economic times we're in a good position. And so the solution to that that every partnerships and channel person should be thinking about is, well, how do we better connect into RevOps and how do we better have our own RevOps so that we can track things and truly approach a CRO or a CFO and say, here's exactly why it's working and why perhaps if you're fighting for budget, it's better than these other channels and why it's more efficient. Um, Unfortunately, it hasn't been discussed a lot in the ecosystem because in general, partnerships and channel is a little bit newer, especially on like the modern partnerships type ecosystem strategy side of things. And we had to figure out execution, but we know how to do execution now. It's time to track it.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think one of the things that I value about uh, what you do is exactly that the fact that you can take and look at partnerships and look at the metrics around those partnerships and create a really compelling story up to leadership on how partnerships are performing, why they're not performing. So you're a level above kind of where I am on the RevOps side of it. So as you know, I've got more of a methodology for how to go to market that ties RevOps into the go to market. It ties more of a methodology for how we go out and create leads that front end any sales process. But before we jump into my stuff, I'd love to just see if you would give a quick overview of some of the either like the best practices or the tools or the thoughts or the ideas that you would have around how to measure the success of partnerships and kind of what you're doing just in general.
Absolutely. And I don't want to oversimplify this, but to keep it short and sweet, one of the things that I always recommend teams consider, and this is some of the work that I do to help teams audit and identify the existing tech workflows and data that they have in an organization, is what is your go-to-market team already doing? What technology are they using? What data are they looking at? And what workflows do they have? Those are all opportunities for you as a partner team to integrate into that. I don't want to, again, oversimplify, but it's honestly not that complex. You don't have to build a whole new system, which a lot of teams try to do. But again, you're strapped for resources and you generally probably don't have the expertise yourself or in-house to do RevOps. And, partner teams are generally pressured to do a lot themselves. But RevOps and like being a data analyst is generally not one of the things that a lot of us have prioritized. And so don't try and do that. Just integrate into the existing tech stack. So my biggest recommendation is note down what are the technologies that are most used with sales and marketing. Note down what are the core data points that they're leveraging for their go-to-market. Talk to the RevOps team. Don't necessarily come to them with a project that they're going to get to 6 months down the line. At least just ask them, what is our team using? What data are we looking at? What are we trying for this next quarter? What did we see last quarter? They probably have a lot of that information already ready. And again, you don't have to do too much work to actually get all of that. It's really just questions and doing some information gathering. That'll put you in such a better position to then say, oh, we're doing all of this on the partnership side. Well, now that I know that this is happening on the go-to-market side for the core business, well, why don't we try and connect those two together? And even if you're just making baby steps, you'll start to see that there is this better reporting for what you're executing on. And there will likely be an increased engagement from the rest of the team because it's meeting them where they are and what they're already doing. So that's as simply as I would put it. I do have stuff to show on the screen as well, but
Fire
Craig,
away.
I wanted to get your thoughts on like that summary.
Oh, 100%. So do me a favor. Why don't you show our audience a little bit about what you're doing? I'd love to see that.
All right. So there's two things that I'll show you. One is a higher level thought around how you can believe partners will impact what the business is doing. So what I'm showing on the screen here is a rough draft of the winning by design buyer's bow tie journey. And in this, what we can identify is the buyer's journey is a natural thing. Your company is targeting specific parts of the buyer's journey, generally through their strategies that they are aiming to run programs against. So, for example, maybe your marketing team says, "Great, we're really focusing on branding. Last month or last quarter, we focused on demand gen or demand capture, but this month we really need to work on our brand. So that's where we're focusing." If you know that, then what you can start to do, and what I've done here as a basic example, is map the different types of partners that can impact these different stages of the buyer's journey. So if you really want to work closer with sales, identify the type of partner that works well here, identify the KPIs that are important at these stages. So maybe it's the number of demos that are being booked for the demand capture stage. For the engage or sell stage, of course, that's going to be things like your conversion rates, close rates, how fast are deals moving, so on and so forth. And what this will allow you to do is, again, whatever the company cares about, they're going to be focusing on these specific things. The CRO might say, "Oh, we need more pipeline this quarter." Great. That's a signal. Take that, identify where it fits in the process, determine what type of partner can play a role here, determine what kind of activities you can run here, and which KPIs are important. Now, the reason that I think this is really important, and this isn't meant to be complex or anything, it may seem straightforward, but the reason for that is because most partner teams are so busy executing that they don't always have the time to think about what is our business focusing on, how can partners help, what is the team doing, and what are the core KPIs that we can impact. But if you do lay it out in this way, then you can start to track things better because you'll know the KPIs, you'll know the programs, you'll be able to more clearly bring in partners because you'll have it all mapped out. So you'll be more efficient yourself, but you're also going to be able to communicate better to the rest of the organization. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is the impact that it's going to have. And what you'll find out from what I opened with around mapping the data and the tech, you'll probably identify specific tech and workflows that will be impacting each of these stages as well. So then you can say, well, this type of partner can be put into this type of technology that our team already uses because we have workflows A, B, and C. And this is why the partner is important. Here's the programs that we're doing. And you simply connect them together so that it's not this siloed or fragmented execution that you're doing. So that's one thing to think about is, again, what's the buyer's journey? How are we focusing on it as a company? What are the important metrics and activities at those stages? And then what partners can we do? What partners can we bring in to impact these different stages as well?
Yeah, I love this. And by the way, I love the fact that you're using the bow tie funnel to actually show this, right? What I've got is something almost, it's very similar that I think fits in, which is a RevOps math equation that I'll show you later on. But it maps very nicely to this, and it's more on the how-to side to create what we need to fill in these buckets. So this is great. I love this.
Amazing. I can't wait to dive into that. The last thing I'll share on the screen, I'll just flash this one a little bit more quickly, but this is to get you an idea of like what type of technologies your team is probably already using. So what I've done is I've organized the types of data that exist in a business. So there's first party data, that's the data that you collect on your website through your product, through the email, so on and so forth. There's second party data, which is going to be out there on social. It's going to be the partner data that if you're using a tool to capture that data, then you can identify who is a customer of my partner and then use that in the business. And then there's third party data, which is basically data that you purchase, contact information to run programs against. And again, I'm not going to go through this whole thing here, but what I've done and all these scribbles are pointing out a workflow of, well, we have this partner data, this second party data. It's going to funnel through some technologies. We're going to pair it with other technologies that we're using, and we're collecting our own data. And then we're going to push that into the workflow that a sales team uses. So for example, could be a sales loft or outreach, a sales sequencer tool. Let's get the data from partners, the data we're using, push that into a workflow that likely already exists today, which simply put, could be something like an email cadence. And let's start funneling that data in so that I, as a partner person, do less of this ad hoc execution and say, hey, sales team, think about partners, or hey, sales team, here's this referral. Those things are still going to be important, but the more that you integrate the partner data into the existing workflows, the easier it will be to not only report on the effectiveness, but this will happen behind the scenes as well. So you can still do your execution work, but with the right RevOps setup, you'll be able to integrate into the rest of the business and work in lockstep with them in their rhythm instead of, again, only being this more ad hoc type program that performs when it performs versus performs as the business is performing. So what you could do with this essentially, tactically is you could do this yourself. You could lay out what technologies are we using? Where do they fit in? Can partner data go in there? Do we collect it? And then start doing some wireframing as well to identify how does this all flow through. And of course, if you have RevOps resources, then work with them. If you don't, I'll happily help you map out this information for yourself, and then you can go from there.
No, I think it's great. I mean, you really are addressing a major issue with partnerships, and that is the execution visibility of what's going on, and then helping people with execution data, right? So I think that's a really important, element. Again, it's why you and I are on the same root system of the tree. On my end of it, as you know, I go like one step further. You're collecting data and sort of, positioning that data in a meaningful way for people to interpret the data and then make decisions at the end. I'm setting up the front end that's going to provide you with a lot of that data that we're gonna put in. So I feel like we're very complementary in what we do. I think you're reporting with and sort of aligning the information in a really meaningful way. I think is super powerful for leaders. And my hope is to say, hey, look, let's take that one step further in the workflow stuff that people are doing, and let's build what we think is a systematic workflow that we want people to follow. That's going to produce the results that we're looking for. So I'll pause there before I show anything. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say you mentioned you would be collecting data, which is absolutely correct. So it would feed into the model that I just showed, but also it would be complementary in that the model that I just showed could funnel into what you're doing as well. So
Sure.
that's why I really like what you've been focusing on. And I always bring it back to one of the core challenges that a lot of people are facing, which is they generally haven't been a CRO in their past lives or past roles. And so they don't necessarily know how to think like a CRO. And I'm not saying that I'm a CRO. I've never been a CRO, but from what I'm seeing from the market and from conversations that I've had with people who have been in that position, they are looking for levers to pull to say, how can I confidently say that if I do this thing or invest more in this area, that more is going to happen down the line? How do I put in a dollar and get two out?
Yep.
There right now is, like you've been saying, this black box for partnerships. I put in money, stuff happens, and I don't know this whole, situation in between the actual dollars coming in. Sure, I get the dollars, but I'm not confident that I can say, well, let's continue to invest here. But what you're putting together is essentially uncovering or opening what that black box is and identifying how we can better work with partners. And ultimately, as well, I think this will be interesting. And I don't know if you specifically talk about this, but like being able to give partners this kind of data enables them. They're going to see the path to value. They're going to take action a lot more. And even if you're like managing them to a certain degree based on what you're about to show us, they're going to be thankful because all the other partners that they're working with are probably in that same black box and they don't know how they can best win with their partner. And so if you can be the partner that says, well, I know how we win with this partner, so let's help them even further from a data perspective, that's massive. You'll immediately be prioritized in a partnership.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. I'm going to pull up a slide here, and I'll walk through a few of the tools, across the board. But so this is the process that I've put in place. But before we even go there, let's go back to the CRO. One of the biggest challenges that every CRO has is strategy execution visibility. and consistent, predictable revenue growth. Everybody is looking for profitable, efficient growth right now. The channel seems like an obvious choice for profitable, efficient growth. But we only get there if we move from ad hoc models to structured performance models. And what a structured performance model is a model that we literally build a system. And think about it just like every system that a sales VP or a CRO puts in place. They go out and they buy winning by design, or they implement a winning by design story. They implement spin selling. They implement target account selling. There's 13 different sales methodologies that they're out implementing. Why do they want a sales methodology? Because it is a packaged system that they can run out, and they can put measurement and accountability through the steps in the process. And they know if I put certain inputs in, I'm going to get certain outputs. And that's the point of a system. But the problem with the channel is we have a process, we don't have a system. Meaning we don't really get predictable results because we're too high up measuring the productivity at the partnership level, rather than moving productivity down to the individual seller and account level. So what we do that's so much different and unique is we put a process in place that is really about how do I turn up active sellers and account engagements and do it in a very systematic fashion. And how do I really turn this into a production line process where we plan the inputs, we have a production process, and then we have a systems controls process that manage the outputs. So that's essentially what we're doing with this RevOps driven structured performance model. I know this is a little bit of a busy slide, but essentially there are three elements to what we do. The first is revenue planning. We will take a revenue number and we will put it into a tool that I have, and it will spit out territory plans and partner plans down to the metric, down to the activity, and down to the time frame. So we will build a revenue roadmap that we can now plan against and measure against that roadmap. The second thing that we do is we have to have a production process. So in the middle, we're going to build a coverage model based on accounts that we want to go after. We're going to score those accounts based on our ICP for a solution. We're going to score those accounts based on relationship scores. We're going to map accounts to partners based on the relationship scores with economic buyers. But we're going to take it one step further. We're going to resource the prospecting activity and the sales development activity through the use of a structured sales play. So it's not a marketing document. It is literally a recipe that we want a partner seller to follow, that's going to take them from how we identify accounts all the way through to the development of the account, the common objections, the every single aspect, how the incentives I put in place, the upsell that I'm going to put in place for that solution. It's all packaged for somebody to follow as a step-by-step process. And then the final thing is, I'm going to jump to one other slide because this will be simpler. Going back to our RevOps roots, it really is about this math equation or something very similar to this. This that I've got up on the screen is the channel force way of looking at and managing performance for a partner ecosystem. What I really care about isn't the number of partners that I have. What I care about is the number of active sellers my partner program is producing, the account coverage, how many accounts are those active sellers prospecting in, what are the engagement rates for that prospecting. If I've got 160 accounts we're actually actively running our sales play with, and I've generated 35 meetings, that's a 22% engagement rate. And then what I care about is how many of those meetings transition to a quoted opportunity, and what's the average deal size, and what's the close rate. So this becomes the math equation that we're looking at. And this gives us the ability to manage the channel in a much, much different way, or the partnership community in a much, much different way. And this reduces that 80-20 rule, where we've got 20% of our partners that are, generating the revenue, and 80% are sitting there dormant. When I move down to the seller level, what I really care about is activating sellers within those partners. So I don't need as many partners. I can become more efficient within those partners at a much lower cost, and a much faster time to market. And I can identify issues based on the trending on these metrics. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. That's the quick overview of what we do. And this becomes the system control. So I'll stop there and I'll show you some of the tools. But any comments?
Yeah, I think the thought that's going through my mind is, we do this for sales teams, and that's why we're able to be much more predictable. And when push comes to shove, a lot of teams default to, well, maybe we should do more cold calls, which I'm not going to say you shouldn't do, but the reason that we're comfortable with that is because you mentioned the words production line. There is this idea that you have laid out here for sellers, but we don't have that for channel. Well, we didn't.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a team that breaks it down to this degree because for whatever reason, either they're again not the expert in this space, or there's not enough content around this in the market or what have you. But ultimately, what I think the core issue is sometimes there's this diffusion of responsibility for part within a partnership, meaning, "Oh, well, that's a whole other business. Why are they not taking action? We signed this contract. They have this commitment and all this kind of stuff." And it's like, well, yes, but if you want them to truly be successful, just like a seller, you need to show them how they can modify the sales process for themselves and how they can engage in the partnership. And I mentioned before we started sharing the screens here that it gives you this path forward, this clear path forward. Your partners will take action if they know that there's a clear path forward to value. And of course, internally, your CRO will also do that too. They'll give you more money. And so why not do this kind of thing? Maybe once in a while, there have been teams that do this in a quarterly review, but it requires a lot of human effort and you have to spend time going through it. But now that we can actually organize this information succinctly and within a tool, that is a big missing piece for a lot of partner teams because again, they're busy executing, they're busy with the relationship, they're busy with
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah, 100%. So, and I won't go into all the sales play development. We'll save that for another time. But I'll go into the RevOps tool side of it. So I have a tool. It's called Planning IQ. It's the front end of that process that I just showed you. And essentially, in this tool, and I won't go into tons of detail. I'm going to work my way backwards forward. So we start with building a revenue plan for a company. So I'm going to take and put some inputs. We're going to define our solutions up here. We're going to define some partners, and we're going to define our revenue targets and our prospecting. And I'll get into that in just a minute. And so we're going to build all this in, and then this tool is going to kick out a set of reports. We have 14 different reports that this tool provides. And essentially what we're doing is we're saying to make, in this specific example, there's $6 million that we're trying to make. 1.2 million of that is run rate business that's going to come in whether somebody shows up or not. We have contracted value from the year before that's going to come in. But we've got to generate 4.8 million this year in this specific plan. So how do I generate that 4.8 million? This is going to tell me how many partners I'm going to need, how many active sellers we need to produce in our production line process, how many target account engagements we have to produce out of those active sellers. It's going to break it down by solution, all the metrics to say we need 24 deals for solution A because we've assigned a certain quota amount of that 4.8 million. We assigned 2.4 of that to solution A. So here are the metrics that we have to run. For solution B, same thing. And it just starts to break it all down. So we have a visibility to what we're trying to do. And then from that, we can build a resourcing plan that says, you know what? I need one channel account manager to actually produce the 4.8 million, but the level of effort is going to be 4.2. So it's going to be a good level of effort for that channel account manager to produce this, but we can do that. These are the number of prospecting units, meaning when we go and define a prospecting process that we're going to enable the partner to, and we're going to enable a certain number of target account engagements for that individual, this is the number of units that we have to produce, 166, in order to get that 4.3 million. And so we're going to need 83 active sellers to do that. And this just starts to break out the metrics, shows you the reports. It breaks it out by quarter. So here's what we have to produce each quarter if we want that revenue to show up this year. It gives me a resourcing plan. It gives me the revenue that we have to pipeline and put in. It gives me when the expected revenue is going to show up. So this tool allows us to do revenue modeling. We can change engagement rates, close rates, all of those things in order to produce a plan that goes along with a territory that is dropped out with a channel account manager. So we're no longer just, hey, here's your number, just go on out and do whatever. We're now giving them a revenue roadmap that we're going to map to. Full disclosure, it is math, meaning that nobody's ever going to hit these numbers exactly, and you probably gauge why, because we have a lot of variables that we put in. But we should be able to hold our partner account managers to these numbers here. How many partners do I need? How many active sellers I produce? How many target accounts? Those numbers are the numbers that I sort of manage the partner account team to. All the rest of it should sort of fill in. Is it going to be exact? It's a plus or minus 10% tool if we do our numbers. So I'll pause there. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm curious how teams are like managing all of this today, like from your experience, how are they doing it? I'm envisioning, that maybe in their CRM they have some report, but I doubt it goes to the depth of even, the number of active sellers that we need to engage. And yeah, what's your take on how teams are currently structuring this, and where does it maybe like end? Is it just like a revenue target and maybe a pipeline target? And then some assumptions. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So first, nobody really does this. And the reason nobody does this is because we have looked at the partnership as the unit of production. So all of our measurement is at the partner level. It's not at the seller level. So we never get down to number of sellers, number of account engagements. That's all kind of black box, mystery box type stuff. So what we do is we assign revenue targets. We look at the historicals of a partner, and if our quota went up by 30%, we take 30% and we start to apply it to the partner community in terms of revenue goals and business plans. And then we figure out how many events we have to do, and all those type of art of channel type things. And again, nothing wrong with that. I mean, we everything does come down to relationships. So I appreciate that aspect of it, but nobody really comes in with the partner, and that's actually a great segue, because as we build and we associate partners to the revenue plan, we want to get at the partner level to say, look, let's negotiate how much of we want to put a target out that's for this particular plan. It's 2.4 million for this partner. How do we generate $2.4 million together? Is that too high? Is that too low? Give me your thoughts, Mr. Partner Leader. And then from there, we can start to negotiate to say, okay, I think that revenue is good. Let's take half that revenue and put it towards target account mapping. We're going to try and generate 1.2 million through a mapping process. We're going to generate the rest of it through market development activities. So we're splitting up the revenue now. And now we're breaking down those metrics again, just like we did before, and we're breaking them down by quarter, what we need to do. We're defining how many active sellers we need at the partner. But now we're getting into the marketing and the campaign side of this. How many outbound emails do I have to send to economic buyers in order to hit this other 1.2 million? How many inbound leads do I need to generate? How many people do I have to push through events to get the right number of people to close 2.4 deals, for example, right? So we're putting all the math in place. So now that we can plan to it, we're also building our MDF plans associated with this. So hey, if I want you to generate 2.4 million, this is how much I'm going to fund for you to generate that. And again, because the way the tool is set up, everything is customizable. So we'll go in and we'll define the solutions and the dynamics of a solution here. We'll go in and we'll negotiate with the partner the percentage split between target account mapping and market development. We will add our metrics in for what we think our engagement rates are and how much of that, the percentage of that revenue we want to go into each bucket. We'll define our MDF spend with this. We'll go into the revenue plan side of it, and we'll start breaking out the revenue that we want to create. We'll define our prospecting process that we're going to go and enable to. We're going to define our territory management process. We're going to define the pipeline from the year before that we expect to show up. We'll start assigning those solutions and those partners to the plan based on the number of partners that we need, and we're assigning goals downstream. So that's really what this tool does, in from a high level. So I'll pause there. Any thoughts on planning IQ and how you think this would work?
Yeah, this in my mind, the what kept going around there is like this is a CRO's dream for anyone who's like, I believe in partnerships, I just want to make it work better. And this is giving them levers to pull because I've been talking a lot about trying to make things more scientific to help make everything more predictable in partnerships, which is because you're working with another business, it is a difficult nut to crack there. But what this is doing is it is making it more predictable because you're able to, at the very least, have a hypothesis of what do we want to do? How do we want to get there? What are our current metrics and conversion rates, internally or with partners? Let's put that all on paper. And then we can come up with a plan of attack of, like you broke down there, we need to do this many calls and have this many inbound and do this much for the inbound for the events. And I can only imagine that today, like you've been talking about, it's this black box where we throw MDF and money at a problem and we kind of hope that it performs. Maybe we have some like historical performance metrics, but we can't be as competent in our planning because if we're only focusing on, well, what worked last time, and we're not taking the scientific approach of, well, we have a hypothesis and here's all this other data that we know is true. Let's funnel that all into our hypothesis and get scientific. Then, yeah, I think it's the challenge that a lot of CROs come to when evaluating whether or not this is a good channel. They simply don't have the information. And I'll say this as well, like they're probably not incentivized to figure it out. Like they don't care. They want you to show them why they should care. And, maybe 10, 15, 20 years into the future, they'll start to care more as they'll understand it and it'll be less of a second nature thing for them. But now that we're able to show them this path forward, you will get that buy-in. And like I said, this is a CRO's dream because now we can start to identify levers to pull to say, let's put in this amount of money and we will get out, at least we can better predict an increased amount versus
Yeah.
today, which is a maybe.
No, 100%. And let's add one more piece to the puzzle. So we're going to be able to do the planning for the metrics. We're going to be able to resource a prospecting process, for lack of a better term. But there's still this back end to say, hey, we plan the metrics. How do I know that I'm on track, right? And that's where this performance management comes into play. And right now, I've got a tool in Salesforce where we will build those sales plays and we'll map a sales play into Salesforce. So, for example, I just have MP3 in here now, but we need to get down to the point where we are actually creating account mappings um, for the execution. So we said, hey, we need 183 target accounts at that partner. Let's start mapping those accounts. And we map them into a tool like this in Salesforce. I have this being built right now on the SaaS platform for Planning IQ. So we're building it out there as well. But the idea is that we're going to be able to map accounts. So in this example, Coca-Cola is the account we've assigned to NCR, and we've assigned it because Kevin O'Neill has a strategic direct relationship with Brent Earlywine. So we scored that. We scored the account. And I know that Russ Schrader, he's the sales rep that's responsible for Coca-Cola for the vendor. And Craig Booth is the partner account manager responsible for the partnership with NCR. So we've mapped it all here. And now what we're doing is we're taking that structured prospecting process that we defined in Planning IQ, and we are just mapping, hey, Kevin is following the process. He is he's doing call to on, this date. And this is the response that he's getting from that. So once we have that, now all the attribution is mapped out down below. We know what Kevin has done, when he's done it, what the response was, and this is all rolling up into this dashboard. And this is saying, you know what? Here's how many active sellers. Again, this is all dummy data, but this is how many active sellers I have. This is how many account engagements I have. this is my engagement rate, this is my conversion rate, this is the average deal size, and here are all the trending month over month on these metrics. And so this dashboard is run by sales play, by partner, and channel account manager. So we can go look at a channel account manager and say, how many active sellers are you producing? Right? Because it's all being mapped into the system, and what's the engagement rates, conversion rates. I can do it at the partner level. So now we're getting data that tells us how a partner is actually performing when it comes to generating leads that front end that CRO's sales process. So this is really just about managing lead generation through the partner using a very scientific method. So
From theory of our hypothesis into the actual activity and action, which, no hypothesis is, worth thinking about unless if you can actually test it and iterate on it. And when again, the narrative that I'm starting to talk more about with people is you need to have more predictability. And what this will all roll up into is a comparison between accounts that we source ourselves versus accounts that our partners source. And that then allows you to make a more competent ask for additional dollars from your CRO or CFO, because you can say, hey, look, we know all of this robust data around the type of leads, the conversion rates, the actual revenue, how we can get more out of this and modify, pull these different levers. That is the ultimate end goal in my mind, is go from theory and hypothesis to action it, and then at the end compare against the other activities or the other sources, so that you can say as a business, which is what the board wants and the execs want, is where strategically should we be investing more? This gives you the ability to say this is where we should be investing more.
yeah,
And more companies want to do that. They just don't have the data to confidently say this is why we should do it. And this gets us a lot closer to that.
yeah, 100%. And then, just going back, one of the things that we're doing, I have Planning IQ being built in Salesforce, and I have Performance IQ that's already built in Salesforce being built into the SaaS version. So we have kind of two flavors that'll be out next year, 100%. But we're going to build in Salesforce, and hopefully the same thing in the SaaS version, is a dashboard that sits in the middle that says, here's the plan for Q1. Here's how you're operating in Q1, and you're red, green, or yellow based on those metrics. You've got the right number of active sellers geared up. You've got the right number of account engagements. This is how they're progressing. And so now when a CRO shows up and says, hey, what's the channel doing, or what's the partner community doing for me? Well, let me show you. Right now we have 175 target accounts we're mapped into. This is how we are progressing by stage. This is the leads that are coming out of that. And this is this month we were down by 22 active sellers. Here's what we're doing to fix that. Our engagement rates have been trending up, and now they're trending down, or they've been trending down and we're trending up. So this dashboard gives us really, really strong data that is actionable, that we can go out and fix problems as we're seeing it. So that's the goal for all of this. And I mean, I appreciate just walking through it with you. And any final thoughts? Is there any other comments or questions that you have on your end that I can help answer?
Final comments are around the more that channel and partnerships people become scientists and have hypotheses and test those hypotheses, much like marketers had to 10, 15 years ago to really get the buy-in of an organization. That is what we need to do. We need to A/B test things. We need to be super granular in the data. There's a reason why marketing automation is, there's so many technologies in that space. It's because it started to become more effective through the scientific approach, and that got a lot of buy-in. Where I saw some stats recently where CMOs are some of the highest paid in an organization. And they're also looking at so many different data points across the marketing journey. We need to do the same, especially if we want a seat at the table. And the only way to do that is through having this approach.
No, I love it. A couple of comments on my end. So one, I love what you're doing, and I think that our process and your processes mirror together very nicely. And I think that you and I are going to have some really good conversations in the future. And I think we're going to actually do some good things together, mirroring, my process and data with your process and data. And I think it gives a really, really good picture for leadership. So I really appreciate you just kind of walking through and seeing our story, understanding what we're trying to accomplish. My last comment, just on the general side of it, any methodology, whether it's mine or anybody else's, that's taking a very similar approach to a RevOps driven, performance model. This is the home run for every revenue leader and partner leader that is struggling with, ROI, revenue, predictable revenue, relevance, and attribution. Those four things we can solve, hands down, and provide that partner leader with the resources, the visibility, and the tools to be on par with the direct sales team. And that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here. So anyway, well, I can't thank you enough for taking an hour. Just great conversation in general. You're a star in the making, and again, really appreciate you.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your wisdom and everything that you're building. And we'll keep providing the scientific value for the community. And if no one else will do it, we'll be doing it. So
Yeah,
thank you for the time.
you got it.